Good morning, everyone. Welcome once again to the Aurum podcast, where we discuss everything regarding building winning teams. First of all, let me apologize for the delay, where we normally start at the top of the hour. We had a few technical challenges that prevented us beginning from time, but we are glad that we could be able to begin. So, welcome once again this bright Saturday morning. I'm your host. My name is Anthony Kuria, and as I said, we discuss everything that regards human capital in this podcast. Well, the Aurum podcast is hosted by Aurum Consultants, a HR and risk advisory consultancy. And here, as I said earlier, we help build winning teams. This month, we've been discussing issues regarding employee welfare. We have discussed issues regarding, how to handle employees from an employer's perspective, the things that are important to employees, motivational issues, and all that. Today, we want to discuss employee welfare in the angle of statutory requirements, because there are certain statutory requirements that the government has put in place that every employer is supposed to adhere to in order to maintain the welfare of the employees in their workplace. Now, with me today is some individuals who will help us deconstruct this particular aspect. And first and foremost, I have my colleague, the Managing Director of Aurum Consultants, Madam Zipporah Kuria. Welcome, Zippy.
Thank you, Anthony. Good morning, viewers.
Yes, and then we have the consultant to the consultants, the HR specialist, Madam Martha Thuku. Martha, welcome.
Thank you so much, Anthony, and welcome viewers to this podcast. As I have said, I've taken this platform to enrich people on various things that we do where I work at LVCT Health. As I have said previously, we are actually leaders in mental health issues. So if you have an issue or your organization, people are suffering, and there's no organization that can tell us that their people are fine. So if you want to take that extra step and support your staff, you don't have to go through it painfully. You just give it to us and we will sort it out for you. The other thing, and I have said this to especially to the NGO sector, it is mandatory now we have this safeguarding policy. We have said safeguarding policy is matters to do with respect at workplace, and it represents various areas, including sexual harassment, any harassment of any kind within the workplace, and even to your vendors, to the people who visit the office or by them. So we need to have that policy, and we are also training organizations on the requirements of that policy and also how to draw it and roll it out. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Martha. Indeed, the HR specialist is speaking issues regarding mental welfare and other statutory requirements. Actually, Martha, those are statutory requirements. Thank you for that. And now, today, I am privileged to have my friend, the ultimate risk specialist, Mr. James Kinuthia, Director of SafePro. Uh, SafePro, let me call it just SafePro. Wacha nisiongeze vitu mingi. And SafePro is a risk advisory firm. We partner with SafePro in handling issues regarding risk. James, karibu sana, and you can briefly tell our viewers what you do at SafePro. Looks like James has a bit of technical issue. But yeah, in regards to issues regarding workplace safety, issues regarding workplace safety, OSHA requirements, and issues regarding OSHA and meeting the requirements of OSHA is something that SafePro does. Yes, James, I think you can hear me now. Kindly introduce
Yes.
yourself and what you do at SafePro.
So my name is James Kinuthia. I'm a I'm the director at Safepro Limited. But other than that, I also consult as a health and safety consultant, approved by DOSH as a fire safety auditor, and as an OSH advisor, line with the OSHA 2007. So basically, what DOSH does is that because it does not have the capacity to reach every workplace, they approve people to assist, sort of via an extension what the government does as far as compliance is concerned. So at SafePro Limited, we help companies comply with OSHA 2007, looking at what trade steps would you have as a business with regards to compliance into safety issues and welfare issues, also under the law. So I think we'll be touching on the welfare aspects and OSHA 2007, and we'll be discussing what is expected of you as a viewer. So welcome.
Thank you, James. That is precisely what I wanted our viewers to hear. Some of you, if you don't know what OSH means, it's occupational safety and health. And as James has said, it's something that the government carries out but uses, it outsources the same to companies like his. So, as I said today, we want to discuss the statutory requirements as regards employee welfare. And as both ZP and Martha will tell you, from a HR perspective, these are things that are required to be done by law, but most of the time you'll find they only pop up when either there's a problem in the workplace, as Martha has described issues regarding mental welfare and all those kind of things, or there's a major accident, or you have gotten a surprise visit from one of the government institutions. And Martha and Zippy, I'm sure you are aware, when we are visited, that is the time you're being called, Martha, are we compliant? And then you start saying, I brought that to your desk, I sent it to your office, and I did not get a response. And the government inspector is sitting there, and there are furious phone calls being made regarding where are we, where have you not done A, B, C, D, and then now, as any employer would know, any entrepreneur you know, now that is the time now, people are running helter skelter. And the purpose of this podcast today is to help you, the employer, you, the entrepreneur, you, the business manager, to be proactive rather than reactive regarding these issues. So, Zippy, let me start with you just to lay a groundwork on what we are discussing today. Uh, from your perspective, let's talk about statutory matters regarding employee welfare. What's your take on that?
Thank you, Anthony. I think just before I respond to your question, it's important for us to understand employee welfare touches on the very core of the business existence.
Mm,
Because if the welfare of our employees are not taken care of, it becomes very difficult for them to be able to perform and for them to be able to give us the service that we have hired them to give us. So it's
exactly.
important for us to understand, even as we talk about this, it does touch on your bottom line, how we manage our employees, how we take care of their welfare. It touches on that. And when we're looking at the welfare of employees, and I know today we want to talk about the statutory requirements when it comes to welfare. Welfare
Mhm,
can be introduced by the government, as we will see today. It can be introduced by the employer, where the employer gives benefits above the wages and all that. It can also be introduced as an initiative from the employees, where they come up with
mm,
different initiatives that would make them, make the work environment much better. Now, when we come to talk about some of the statutory requirements, if we look at the Employment Act, Part 4, it talks about the rights or the duties of of employment. And you will find a lot of issues that are touched on that chapter where we talk about leaves, for example,
mm,
and it's part of the welfare when we send an employee on leave, what is expected of us as an employer. I've seen situations where, I've gone on leave and I'm not on leave. I'm actually constantly working. I'm only absent from the office, but I'm actually working. And you find I don't take time to rest, which is the major or the core purpose of me going away on leave, to rest, to recuperate, and come back a bit energized. We will probably see situations where the law talks about provision of something like water. We
mm,
are required to provide safe drinking water, and I'm sure James will touch on that. How do
mhm,
we make sure something simple like that, is provided for? I've seen workplaces where, for example, you go and there's no water to drink. You'll probably be told we take the tap water, and when you look at it, the tap water is not treated. There are no mechanisms that are put in place to make sure the water is safe. Um, Things like housing. Again,
Yes.
that chapter talks about housing and how do we handle housing. Are we giving an allowance in terms of housing? Are we giving an actual house to the employee? And it's something that the law requires us to do. It's a welfare issue, but it's pegged on the statutory requirement by the government of the things that we need to do. Things like medical attention. We always think medical attention, is a privilege. It's not. The law requires us to give medical care to our employees. So again, we need to understand, what does the law require of me? What is the minimum I must give to my employees from a legal perspective? Then I can see as an employer, what else can I do in addition to that? Because what the government says, I believe, is a minimum of what I should
Mm.
attain as an employer. It shouldn't be, that's the threshold. That's a bare minimum. But I believe we can be able to do more in terms of just helping our employees have a better work-life balance, or a better working environment for that matter.
Thank you, Zippy. You've really laid the groundwork for the same. For any of our viewers or listeners who want to understand, is this just another set of rules that is a requirement for me to just, the government is just putting some roadblocks? No, these are not roadblocks. They are basically the groundwork laid for you to run your business safely and wisely. Martha, you hinted on the mental issues being, mental issues and statutory. So, meaning you understand clearly matters from a statutory, matters regarding employee affair from a statutory perspective. What's your take on that?
Thanks so much, Anthony. And it's just to add on to what Zippy has already alluded to. So, first and foremost, we need to be clear that employee welfare is everything done by the employer for the comfort of their employees, and this is in addition to their regular wages.
Mm,
So, it's the statutory duties that are
yes,
a requirement by the government, and they touch mostly on health, safety, and welfare of their employees, and even the people who might be affected by uh, what I can call the work activities.
yes,
If you have an office, the people who will be
yes,
affected by where you are located, or whatever, the people who visit your office. So all those
yes,
things it's a requirement of by the government to take
yes,
care of them.
mm,
So what I can say is that the government sets the minimum standards, like Zippy have said,
yes,
regarding the health, safety, welfare issues. So it is important that employers must do whatever is reasonably, let me use the word reasonably practicable to achieve
yes,
this.
yes,
Um, we are putting in mind that what we are doing is for bettering the life of our
mm,
employees, in terms of health, safety, that's physical health, environmental, mental health. So all those things that we need uh,
mm,
to do that, and they range from employer to employer.
mm,
So, as I've said, the government sets the bare minimum. So, once you have not done the bare minimum as per the statutory requirements, and that's why we are calling them statutory, because they are government initiated.
mm,
CB have alluded on some, like the even that contract, the hours of work, the leave
mm,
aspect, the
mhm,
health aspect,
mm,
the even some retirement aspect, where
mhm.
you'll find, like for the health, you'll find NHIF requirements. For retirement, you'll find NSSF.
Yes,
For health, or risk, you'll find something we call WIBA, Workman Injury Benefit Act.
yes, yes,
uh, those are the minimum for the
yes,
government. So that's
yes,
a requirement for every employer, whether big or small. Once you
yes,
have met that minimum, you will not be at risk with the government. Then you'll
Mm,
find other employers then do better. The,
mhm,
the law encourages you do better
mhm.
than the
Yes,
minimum. So the
yes.
minimum is the statutory, and you are
Mm,
encouraged to do better. And there are
mm,
various organizations who do outrageous things that make
mhm,
their employees happy. And there are some
mm.
organizations, because of financial aspect, they are not
Yes,
able to go over and above
yes.
what the statutory requirement is. However, it's important to meet the basic. There are some other
Mm.
organizations who feel nothing even about the basic. And I can
Yeah.
say you are at risk, because should there be like an issue to do with accident in the
Mm,
workplace,
yes.
and then you do not have WIBA,
Mm,
uh, what that means, because if WIBA requires that you engage an insurance
yes,
organization,
yes.
so that means the costs of that accident will come directly to you.
Mm-hmm.
And let's say there is death and all, and everything is articulated in the law, how you
Mm,
are going to pay for accidents at workplace.
yes.
So if you are not insured, or you have felt nothing about that legal requirement,
Mm,
you are safe as long as nothing happens. And as Tony have said, everything is good as long as nothing happens.
yes,
But I'm
yes.
telling you, should one thing happen, your organization, there could be a turnaround for your organization. And if you are
Mm.
not in, you don't have it right, the turnaround will not be good for you. Thank you. That's what I can give as a brief concerning this. Thank you.
Wow, wow, wow. Thank you, Martha. Thank you, Martha. You brought some issues there from a HR perspective. James, from your perspective as a safety expert, as a workplace safety expert, uh, just give us an overview of the statutory areas of employee welfare from your
Mhm.
perspective. Yes.
Mhm.
Yes, James, you can go ahead. Give us your perspective on the same.
Mhm.
James, can you hear us?
Mhm.
Looks like James can't quite hear us. Yes, it looks like James there is not quite hearing
Right.
us.
So,
Yes, yes, go
from
ahead.
OSHA perspective, it's important to first of all, yeah, it's important to understand that when you talk about OSHA 2007, it guarantees three things. First one is safety, the second one is health, and the third is welfare. So when you look at the way OSHA is arranged, it has what the employer is required to do, the duties of the occupier. It has duties of employed persons, and then it
Mhm,
comes now to the general duties. It comes to safety, general duties. It touches on health, general duties, and then it comes to welfare, general issues.
mhm,
So under welfare, you're looking at OSHA 2007, Section 91, all the way to Section 95. Those are very specific to the welfare issues that the
mm,
employer is supposed to check it. So the other thing that you must also note is that after the welfare provisions, we also have something we call welfare special provisions.
mm,
And I'll try and elaborate each of these. So under the welfare general provisions, you'd be looking at what ZP alluded to earlier,
mhm,
provision of drinking water. But the law is very specific. It says water. So you'll not just go into a river and fetch water and say this is drinking water. It has got to be wholesome in the sense that it is fit for human consumption. And it
mm,
goes ahead and says, if this water is not piped, then it will be put in a container that is clean, replaced on a daily basis, and is clearly labeled as drinking water. So whether it is in a tap or it is in a container, this must
mhm,
be clearly labeled as drinking water. So
mm,
no one should just assume that every other tap can produce drinking water. You have to specify which tap has wholesome drinking water. So that if an
mm,
officer was to come and take a sample and take this water to a lab, if it fails the test of wholesomeness, then you
mm,
as an employer of course, is I mean, you meet head on with the law.
Mm, mm,
The second provision under welfare is what we talk about washing facilities. So certain workplaces will require that these people get a shower before they go home. If you're
mhm,
working in a very dusty environment, let's say you're milling flour, let's say you're dealing with a chemical powder, if these
mhm,
people don't take a shower, they're going to take the chemical in their nails, in their hair, and sometimes even on their clothing. So the law is
mm,
very particular about making sure that they get a shower before they go. So washing facilities are a requirement under the law, right?
mhm,
And the washing facilities would even go to as basic as having a hand wash basin right after
mhm,
someone has had,
mhm,
has visited a washroom or something. So washing
mm,
facilities would be general, the showers and the wash basins, which is why even when you're registering your workplace, under DOSH
mm,
23, you must mention how many wash basins you have in that
mm,
workplace.
mhm.
Okay.
Yes.
The third item is the issue of PPE storage. That
Mhm,
lockers must be provided where staff can keep, first of all, their personal belongings. Because if I
mhm,
come with a jacket into the workplace, I need to
mhm,
store it safely somewhere so that it does not gather the workplace contaminants in that workplace.
mm,
Okay? So,
mhm.
what that
Yes.
means is that a separate storage facility needs to be provided
Mm,
for the PPE that you have and for the personal clothing that you have.
mm. Yes.
Okay?
Yeah.
So I know sometimes I really argue with employers when I tell them you need two lockers per employee. And they're arguing,
Mm,
no, one is enough. But I put my overall inside here. In the morning, I
mhm,
put my jacket there. What was the
mm.
point? I would rather have just hanged it out there, it collects all the dust it can, because the
Ah,
contaminants it's trying to avoid are actually within
mm,
the locker,
mm.
right? So that's
Sure.
another welfare provision that people really overlook. Okay.
Mhm,
The other one, of course, is the issues of first aid kits provision. And I think
mm,
that one is also, though it is also mentioned under the first aid rules specifically, where the law
mhm,
talks about making adequate provisions where you have a first aid kit, you have people who man it, and these are trained first aiders, and this is well stocked and adequately maintained over time,
mm.
right?
Yes.
So when you look at welfare from a safety perspective, it is really straightforward. I mean, storage
Mhm,
for clothing, washing facilities, drinking water. These are things of we would call common sense. Sometimes it
mm,
really surprises you to find that in a workplace, some of these things are lacking. All right,
mhm.
and they are
Yes.
very. I mean, anyway. So let's go to the special provisions. Under the special provisions, the law is looking at things like permits to work. So this is
Mm,
welfare special provisions, is what we
mhm,
call permits to work. A permit
mhm.
to work is not a work permit, the one that we give to foreigners. A permit to work, yes, you have a very hazardous task to be carried out. Let's say you're changing
Mhm,
the bulb. This is not a routine task. It is not something that you
mm.
do on a daily basis.
Yes.
All provisions have to be made so that the people who are going to change that bulb or clean that roof or clean those windows, they have proper fall arrest systems, they are on a platform that is safe, and you make sure that a document has actually been issued detailing what kind of work is going to be done, what is
Mm,
the hazards that they are going to face, and how have we
mhm,
mitigated on this. Then
mhm,
it also talks about indentured learners. These are the interns, the people you get from the university. Sometimes I know organizations really love them because they help
mhm,
you run things at a
mhm.
very low
Yes.
cost, which is good
Yes.
because you're giving them an opportunity to learn.
Yes.
However, some organizations, there are people who take interns as an opportunity to take a break. The law is very clear. If you have an indentured learner
Mm,
in your workplace, they are not to operate any machine, even if they are being trained on it, without supervision. If they were to get an accident and there is
mm,
no supervision, that is a direct collision with the law because it's clearly stated that even if they are allowed to use the
mhm,
machines in their process of learning, they shall not do this unless there is a supervisor there. That is the person who was training them must be present. So it's
mhm.
not an opportunity for the operator to take a break, right?
Yeah.
And the law is very particular about them. Yeah.
Mhm,
So interns and indentured learners, supervision is critical for their safety.
mm,
So please,
mhm,
that is under welfare, general, special provisions. right?
Mm.
And the third item under the special provisions is where the law prohibits, of course, employment of anyone under 18. But sometimes the
Mm.
students you will get, because of the learning systems that we are having, some may not
Mm.
necessarily have attained the age of 18. But the law is saying
Yes.
ensure they are not involved in any work that might directly harm their health, their
Mm.
safety, or their well-being. All right.
Mm.
So if there is a chemical room that is only accessed by the professionals, please don't allow this person to access that room because it's going to be
Mm.
dangerous for them, even just by the virtue of the fact that they are below the age of 18.
True.
So, in a nutshell, that is what you'd call the welfare provisions under OSHA 2007. Those ones are the specific ones that are highlighted. But even as you
Mhm.
go through the law, you realize there are some welfare provisions that are hidden in the other
Mhm.
provisions of the law, right?
Mhm.
Like when you talk about a clean and healthy workplace, I mean, it's a welfare in its own way. Provision of
Yes.
the sanitary facilities that are well equipped with sanitary bins, even in the ladies' washrooms. And I don't know, I think as a room, you need to really pass information to employers.
Mm.
Number one, washroom should not be shared. I don't know why
Mm.
people assume we can have an M stroke F toilet. The law prohibits that under welfare
Mhm.
provisions,
Yes.
right? There should be separate, clean, well maintained facilities for convenience.
Mm. Mhm.
Number two, in the ladies' washrooms, you must provide a sanitary bin because,
Mm.
I mean, what is the expectation you have,
Mm.
especially when you know very well that you also have employees of the female gender? Because you
Yes.
ask them, they tell you, oh, we got quotations, I don't know from who, they are expensive. Expensive is a term that does not matter to the law because service providers are out here. If you go for
Mm.
the high end, you'll get a high end quote. If you go for the mid, it depends. There's a service provider for every budget in this market, and that is not an excuse for you not to meet the provisions of the law.
Wow.
So I'll stop at that so that we can digest further.
Wow. If you are listening like me and writing notes, I'm sure Martha is also writing notes there.
I've
Eh?
written.
Yes. James has clearly explained to us statutory areas that touch employee welfare. And as he has said, it's not an issue of cost, really, if you think about it. It's not an issue of, tunaanza kazi tunaendelea. No, it's simply an issue of complying with the law. And as much as I know employers and business people may think this is onerous, it's hard, it's tedious, it's time consuming. Oh, I will go deal with the government, I'll be done ABCD. There is what we think dealing with meeting statutory requirements will cost in terms of dealing with government bureaucracy. But we have heard very clearly that the law requires certain minimum standards to be met. And most of these are very straightforward issues regarding if you're operating a factory, if you're operating a school, if you're operating a hospital, if you're operating a what, an office setting. There are things that go across the board. James has just said something that has hit my head. Sometimes, even in an office setting, it could be an issue of windows, just windows. Do people open the windows to let in fresh air to come in and out? Do people have access to things of that kind? Because, like now in our office, I know I tell my staff to Kingia, hey, people, these windows are there to be opened. But now because we're heading to July, people are saying, "Bwana, kuna baridi, kuna baridi." No, no, it's a bit cold.
Mhm,
You're supposed to open windows to let air come in and out. Now, going further, issues regarding, Zippy has mentioned this earlier, issues regarding, okay, and this one I'm sure James will agree with me, floors. Are the walls
mhm,
floors slippery? Can somebody walk in there, apige somersault, anguke chini? We're talking about cleanliness.
mhm,
So these are things for to our viewers and listeners, uh, that that are basic, that they're straightforward, that the law has put in place, and that if you comply with such, you're already meeting the minimum threshold, as Martha said. But James, I want to come to you again. There's a
mhm,
question here. Probably you have alluded to it, but let me just now bring this directly to you. How does
mhm,
safety in the workplace contribute
mhm.
to employee welfare. Just give us a hint from your perspective how this works. How does safety work at the workplace contribute to employee welfare?
Right. So when you, I mean, linking safety to welfare,
Yes.
I would assume there's just a direct connection because think about it. When
Mhm.
we talk about doing everything that is required of the employer to ensure
Mhm.
his workers are safe, of course,
Mhm.
that would mean that the floors don't have anything that would either
Mhm.
cause them to trip or slip.
Mhm.
So the
Mhm.
aspect of cleanliness and proper drainage, if you have wet processes in the workplace, would mean
Mhm.
they're already taken care of. So
Sure.
from a safety perspective, you already guarantee that your employees will not be sleeping, they'll not be tripping. It falls
Yes.
both under the safety and it will also reflect directly into the welfare aspect. When you look
Mhm.
at issues of economics under safety, you're talking about comfortable seating facilities for the workers who are doing desk work. That is a
Yes.
desk that allows them to assume a neutral position when sitting,
Yes.
because the workplace is our new home. We spend
Yes.
more time in our workplace than we spend
Mhm.
anywhere else. It
Mhm.
therefore means if you're exposed to a very bad posture in your
Mhm.
workplace, it
Mhm.
will reflect either now or later in the quality
Mhm.
of life you live towards the
Mhm.
end of your career.
Mhm.
I mean, it's a given. It's not a
Yes.
guesswork. You assume negative postures or strenuous positions during work, you'll have back
Mhm.
issues, you'll have neck issues, you'll have wrist issues if you're typing for too long in the wrong posture. So,
Yes.
by taking care of the safety aspect under ergonomics, you've also taken care of the welfare of this person and the quality of life they live, either now or even after retirement.
Yes.
Look at persons who work while standing. The law by the way does not say that none should work while standing. And I've had this
Mhm.
argument, oh, tunasimama sana. I mean, it's okay, fanyeni kazi kama mmesimama. There is
Mm.
nowhere the law says that lazima mkae chini for you to work. No.
That is
But
true.
the law is very clear under welfare provisions, and I think these are skipped, that sitting facilities must be provided for these workers to take advantage during breaks and have a rest,
Mhm.
so that when they are
Yes.
taking their tea or when they are taking their 10-15 minutes break, they have comfortable and sufficient facilities where they can take advantage of sitting and they sit.
Mm.
And this has to be in a well aerated area, a safe place where at least it's calm. So you can't give me a sitting facility next to the boiler that I'm
Mhm.
also working with. During my break, I'm sitting within the same factory that is producing noise. And and there are people with space. You have even a green area, provide a seating facility where people can go take a break, refresh. And I mean, what ZP used to recuperate, because it is important to sort of hit the default settings again, reset. So by
Mm.
looking at the economics aspects under safety, you're also taking care of the welfare aspect, because
Yes.
under safety you're told about economics, and under welfare you talk about setting facilities. So it
Mm.
therefore tells you that by the time you're in the setting of complying with the safety provisions, somehow even without effort, automatically the welfare provisions also start falling into place. By
Into
the time
place.
you're
Yes.
taking care of the health aspects, automatically the welfare aspect of even first aid and a clean environment without dust, without fumes, without those things also start to fall in place. It therefore means
Mm.
you cannot say I'm taking care of welfare without taking care of safety. You can't have one without the other. If one is there,
Aha.
then the other also is there.
Will come in. Wow.
Yes, so
Wow.
it
Wow.
simply says that when you are deliberate about complying with safety and health, welfare provisions somehow start falling into place without too much
Uh-huh.
effort. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, James. Thank you very much. Indeed, safety and welfare are directly correlated. There is a connection that is very clear. And for our employers out there, if you are an employee also, and probably you're at a place where as we speak, you're nodding your head and saying that what that gentleman is saying is true. We notice A, B, C, D, and we would like to understand more. If that is you, or if you're an employer and you're thinking, "Wow, I'm exposed like badly," get in touch with us. We have our contacts at the bottom of the screen, via phone, via LinkedIn, via email, via YouTube, via WhatsApp, and Facebook. Get in touch with us. If you'd like to get in touch with James and SafePro, as I said earlier, we work in partnership with SafePro to provide the specific OSH help if you are in need. we would love to help you get this matter straight up. So if you need our help, if you need to know more about what James is doing, kindly get in touch with us. We will love to connect with you. A few comments here and there. Thank you, Johnson Mavole, for your comments on Facebook. We appreciate the fact that you appreciate what we are doing. And to anyone, if you have a question, even as much as our time is really gone, if you have a question, you have a comment, kindly throw it in. We would love to continue, I mean, to highlight it here and to discuss it. Finally, as an employer, what can I do? That's the final question. And let me bring it to the MD of Aurum Consultants, Madam Zippy. Speak for the sake of other employers. Kindly give us briefly what employers can do regarding all these things that we've discussed about today.
Thank you, Anthony, for that question. Before I actually answer that, I just want to go back to what James was sharing and what I alluded earlier about welfare. Sometimes it can be brought in by the government, sometimes it's employer, sometimes it's employee. And as James was talking about, I thought about how employers can enhance this. Sometimes you will find because of the work requirements, our employees probably would work very late in the office. Do we make any provisions to make sure they are safe? How do they get home? Is that something that we think about? Or do we allow them to work until very late at night and they have to figure out their way back home? And I find this a big challenge with a lot of employers where they have a lot of expectations from employees. Employees have to put in a lot of time, but when it comes to how this employee gets home, then it's not their problem. And I think it's something we need to think about. How do we ensure their safety, from even from
Mm,
work to home? Because think about it, as an employee, I care about how do I get home. I don't
mhm,
want to say I won't be able to do this work. I want to do it, but is there a provision for me to be able to get home safely? When we look at the environments we work in, insecurity has become so high. When I'm
mm,
inside that office, am I assured of my safety? We saw what have happened, for instance, at Westgate and many other
mm,
establishments. How do we make sure that safety for employees while they are working for us is actually ensured and they are feeling safe and comfortable, knowing that they don't have to worry about that? But to go back to the question you've asked about what employers can do, I think one of the basic things employers can do is understand the basics of the law, because
mm,
I think this is where we go wrong when we don't take the initiative to understand the basics of the law. Some time back, I was engaging a senior labor officer, and I remember asking, we're talking about actually NITA because employers get a lot of challenges with NITA and not complying. And when they get penalties, they start wondering, why do we have to pay all these penalties? And the
mm,
response from this officer was, when you're starting a business, it's your responsibility to actually research, to ask questions, and then to understand what the law requires of you and to
mm,
understand those basics. Because when you don't comply, the law really doesn't care. When you are caught up, you're caught up and you have to pay the price for it. So I would say,
mm,
as a basic, employers need to understand the law. And this is one of the things that we do here at Aurum Consultants, where we will educate you, we'll help you understand what does the law require of me when it comes to employment matters. The other thing is, James has alluded to, there are many service providers within the different services that we need. We need to
mm.
understand the kind of service we're looking for, who is providing for that service, what are our budgets, and plan for it. Because again, if you don't plan for it, you'll not be able to action it. So again,
Yeah.
just taking that step of understanding who the service provider is. And of course, the other thing I would say is you understand the law, be compliant with the law.
Mm,
We have found ourselves as employers in court because of non-compliance. And again, I know sometimes running a business can be a challenge, and I'm sure James will agree to this, where there are so many demands on you as a business owner, as a director. But not complying does not help either. It can end up becoming
mm,
very costly for your business, and you can end up losing your business just because you did not comply. So, number one, understand the law, and number two, make the step to comply with the law.
wow, wow, wow. That in a nutshell is what it is. Zippy has given us a clear understanding. Martha, Uh, I know you are a strategic partner where you work with as a HR director. What is your perspective, in a nutshell, in brief, what a typical employer can do regarding statutory requirements?
Indeed, from James' perspective, I was just thinking through and all the things he was saying, and I'm thinking, gosh, are they doable? do, do we really do this? And I was looking at our fast-paced environment and also the expensive
Mm,
environment,
mm,
and how much an employer would want to evade all those things and just do the little they can. If
yes,
it's for OSHA, just have is it you need to register. Just you
yes.
register and not do all those other things. That's
Mm,
what I was thinking. But after what ZP have said, you know, the minimum is set by the government. Huh?
yes.
And if I was an employer, I would just go to the internet.
Mm,
What is the minimum set by the government for A, medical, for
mhm,
B, NSS? You know, those minimum from the government, that
mm,
is what you are accountable to. The other
mhm,
thing, even as you think about money, is you see what is really the benefit of what I'm doing. And I was
mm,
thinking through about the employer who does these things. And, you know, like last week we shared how the welfare enhances morale,
yes,
loyalty, commitment, and then
yes,
profitability.
yes,
I just thought it also develops better image of you from the
yes,
mindset, from the mind of the employee,
exactly.
that, that you care. And I
Mhm,
thought through and I said, you know, like in a relationship between the husband and wife,
mm,
when the wife says, my husband is a good man,
mhm,
you need to believe because
mm, yes,
she is the only one who knows the husband.
mm,
All of
that is
us, we are just seeing from there,
outside.
but inside, it's only her who is aware about the husband, not even the
Mm,
children.
no,
So the same aspect applies to an employee. It's an employee who can say, my employer is a good
employer.
employer. And what will make your employee say those things
Mm,
is because of what you are doing. So that's why I'm saying the employer needs to, first of all, check the basic minimum from the
yes.
government. Please ensure you have the Employment Act with you and
Mm,
read through. And you have all those other acts, the WIBA Act, the OSHA
mm,
Act. You just know what is my basic minimum and
mm,
comply. Because as
mm,
we have seen, if it hasn't happened, it doesn't mean it will not happen.
happen.
And then when
Yes.
it happens, then things will really be bad. And then
Mm,
also now start thinking about the benefits. When you start thinking about the benefits, you start making those benefits or welfare benefits even better for your
mm,
employees to talk good things about you. And then you
mhm,
find you're attracting high skilled
mm,
workers because
mhm,
of what the other your employees are saying outside about you.
mm,
And then there's one aspect of trade unions.
mhm,
It is a statutory requirement that everyone is covered by a trade union.
mm,
So will your employees depend on trade unions to sort their things, or are they going to be comfortable just working with you because of the things that you are doing? That's what
mm.
I'll put in that. Thank you.
Wow, 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 wow. Thank you, Martha. You've touched a number of things here and there, issues regarding branding even, because when you have a good brand image out there, your employees say this is what is working, we are working well, things are good, it's a good place to work in. Not because you have met the statutory requirements, because it has to be, but you've realized there's a benefit that comes from it and you made it. James, as we
Yes.
conclude, what's
Mhm.
your take concerning what employers can do?
Well, it's interesting when you are the last one answering a question. Most of the things have already been said. However, I think from where I sit, I deal
Yes,
more with compliance. And I think I want to
exactly.
echo what Seth said. First of all, it's your responsibility to know what is due of you, or rather, what is
Mm,
required of you, and how many
mm,
statutory acts actually apply to your business. It's up to
Mm.
you to do your legislative framework, your legal framework, and just have a legal matrix. No,
Mhm.
I need to comply to these. I need to comply to these. Where am I? Sort of have it
Yes.
even in an Excel. I know I'm supposed
Yeah.
to comply to public health, to OSHA, to Employment Act, to WIBA, to have these in a legal matrix. Have
Mhm.
a look at it every now and then, and ask yourself
Yes.
whether you've met
Mhm.
all the provisions. So find out what is required of you, and secondly, just have a
Mhm.
commitment to fulfilling the law. I mean, don't fight with the law. It requires
Yeah.
very minimum of you. Actually,
Yes.
as the business grows, is when now you talk about beyond compliance. Is where
Mhm.
you make steps beyond compliance. So just not complying shows either you're too greedy with your profit or you're just too lazy
Yes.
to find out. I mean, there's just something because
Yes.
compliance is least, it's the most basic, it's the most minimum. Even by
Mm.
the time you're talking about international standards, you're nowhere there by the time you're just talking about it.
Mm.
So just comply with
Mm.
the law, find out what you're required to do, and do it. Because again, we
Mm.
know ignorance is no defense. And
True.
where you know you have no information,
Mhm.
Arum is doing free podcast, as in they are not charging for this.
Mm.
Get in
Yes.
touch, get in
Yes.
touch. Tell them I run this kind of a business. Develop for me a legal matrix. I want to know
Mhm.
what is required of me. And together with the
Mm.
team and the partners we have, we'll be able to at least come up with something you can work with.
Yes.
And if something else
Yes.
comes and you have no idea, don't say, "Oh, I'm not required to." Just say, okay, that one also okay. So what am I supposed to do? Because every legal requirement has a time
Yes.
frame that will always be given to comply. No one will
Exactly.
tell you, not done this, let's go to court. No. Everyone will have a time frame, either 7 days,
Yes.
21 days, or whatever time you'll be given to comply. So there is no excuse as to why we should not at least, I mean, after all, it's for the sake of our employees who are also our
Exactly.
brothers and sisters in other ways. So I think that's what
Exactly.
I'll say.
Wow. Wow. That hits the nail on the head. For anyone out there who is listening to us and you have a question regarding employee welfare, what is the statutory minimum requirements? James has said something about international standards. I don't think anybody out there is running a business just because it's a kiosk, you're just intending to remain like a kiosk for the rest of the time that business is running. I'm sure every entrepreneur is believing you can dominate Kenya, for example. You can be a significant market player here in Kenya or across East Africa. And if that is the case, then statutory requirements are things that you need to meet even as you keep growing. And to our viewers and listeners, thank you very much for taking your Saturday, this chilly Saturday morning, to join us and to hear this. I hope it has been a warming and good discussion regarding employee welfare in terms of meeting the statutory requirements. We thank you for your time. What we want to tell you is get in touch with us. Get in touch with us at Aurum Consultants. We would love to help you look at what James called the legal matrix, to help you look at if you're already existing. Are you compliant? Or are there gaps? Are there things that you need to do in terms of DOSH, in terms of WIBA, in terms of meeting the statutory requirements that require an expert like James to come in? And we will partner together. Our job at Aurum Consultants is to help you, the employer, get yourself compliant, also strengthen your employee welfare, strengthen your team, your staff team in order to achieve superior results. So, with that said, we appreciate your time. We also appreciate you, Martha. We appreciate you, James. And Zippy, thank you for coming to our show today. We are looking to conclude strong next week when it comes to employee welfare. And therefore, I want to remind you, do not fail to join us as we finish this topic of employee welfare strong. And next week, we'll discuss certain issues regarding stress and how it can be mitigated. So with that said, thank you for joining us. Have a nice weekend and God bless you.